Okay. Can I ask you something a little uncomfortable right at the start?
Oh no, already? We haven't even said hello properly.
Hello! Welcome back. Okay, now the uncomfortable question.
Fine, go.
How long have you been learning English?
Mm, Officially, since I was maybe 10 years old, so a long time.
And do you feel like your English improved at the same speed the whole time?
No, definitely not. For years, it felt like I was moving, like I could feel the progress. But then at some point, it just slowed down, like I hit a wall.
That's exactly what I want to talk about today, because I think most English learners hit that wall and don't know why. And the reason is really interesting.
Is it because we're not studying enough?
No, that's actually the myth I want to destroy today. It's not about studying more. It's about something most people never think about.
Now I'm curious and a little nervous.
Good. Stay nervous. It means you're paying attention. Before we get into it, if you're new here, welcome. This channel is called Practice English with Adam, and we do things a little differently. There are no grammar tables, no list of rules to memorize. We just talk, like real people. And you learn by listening and absorbing, the same way you learned your first language as a child.
I love that about this channel, honestly. When I first found it, I thought, okay, another English class, but it didn't feel like a class. It felt like eavesdropping on a conversation in a good way.
That's the goal. So if that sounds good to you, subscribe, hit the bell, and make sure you stick around to the end today because we're going to talk about the actual habits that separate the learners who get fluent from the learners who stay stuck.
And I used to be very much in the stuck category, by the way. I want to say that clearly. I studied English for years. I passed exams, I could write an essay, but I could not hold a real conversation without freezing.
Say more about that. What does freezing feel like?
It's like, you know the words, they're in your head somewhere, but in the moment when someone is looking at you, waiting for you to speak, nothing. The brain just goes blank. And then you say something really basic and simple, and afterwards you think, why did I say it like that? I know better than that.
Yes, and that experience, that gap between what you know and what you can actually produce in the moment, that is exactly what today's episode is about.
Good, because that gap is very frustrating.
It is, but it's also very fixable once you understand what's causing it. Okay, so let's start with the core idea, and I want to use an analogy.
I love analogies. They help me.
Imagine you want to learn to swim. So you go to a library, you read every book about swimming, you study the technique, you understand how the arms move, how you breathe, how you kick. You pass a written test about swimming with a perfect score.
Okay, very well prepared.
Now, someone throws you in a pool.
Oh no.
Can you swim?
Probably not. I mean, I know the theory, but knowing and doing are different things.
Exactly. And that is the problem with how most people learn English. They spend most of their time building knowledge, grammar rules, vocabulary lists, textbook exercises, but very little time building the skill. And fluency is a skill. It's not information.
I feel so called out right now. That's literally what I did for years. I had notebooks full of vocabulary. Beautiful notebooks, actually. Very colorful.
Very organized?
Incredibly organized, and completely useless when I needed to speak.
Right, because organizing vocabulary in a notebook is a knowledge activity. Speaking in real time, reacting, responding, finding the words under pressure, that's a skill activity. And you build skills through practice, not through study.
So when people say, I've been studying English for 10 years, they might mean I've been collecting information about English for 10 years.
Exactly. And that's not the same thing. That's the wall you mentioned. Most learners hit it because they've run out of information to collect, but they haven't trained the skill, so nothing moves.
Okay, that actually makes me feel better about myself. I wasn't failing, I was just doing the wrong kind of work.
You were doing work that felt productive, but wasn't building what you actually needed. Okay, so let's talk about what actually works. And the first one is probably the most uncomfortable one.
Why is everything uncomfortable in this episode?
Because the comfortable stuff isn't working. So, habit number 1, you have to produce more than you consume.
What do you mean by produce?
I mean speaking and writing, actually making English, putting words out into the world, not just taking them in. Most learners spend 99% of their time on input, watching videos, reading, listening, and maybe 1% actually using the language.
I'm raising my hand. That was definitely me.
And it feels good, right? Watching an English show feels like you're learning. And you are, a little, but it's passive. Your brain is not under pressure. There's no risk.
Yes, and when I'm watching something in English and I understand it, I feel so confident, like, okay, yes, I'm basically fluent. And then someone asks me a question in real life and I completely fall apart.
That feeling is called the comprehension illusion. You think because you understand, you could produce, but those are completely different circuits in the brain.
The comprehension illusion. I'm gonna remember that. That explains so much.
So the shift is you have to start producing every single day, even a little, even badly.
This is where I always get scared, because producing badly, especially speaking, is really exposing. It's vulnerable.
What does it feel like for you when you have to speak English and you know it's going to be imperfect?
It feels like everyone is watching, like I'm on stage without a script. I'm afraid people will judge me or laugh or think I'm not intelligent because my English isn't perfect. And that fear makes me freeze even more. It's a vicious cycle.
It really is, and I want to say something about that because it matters. The fear is real, but it's built on a false belief.
What false belief?
That people are judging you as harshly as you judge yourself. They're not. Most people, when they hear someone speaking English as a second language, are not thinking, wow, their grammar is so bad. They're just listening to what you're saying. The harshest critic in the room is almost always you.
That actually makes me want to cry a little bit because it's true. I've been performing for an audience that mostly doesn't exist.
Most learners are. So the first habit is produce more, speak more, write more. Even 1 minute of speaking out loud every day. Talk to yourself, record a voice note, tell a story to your phone. Just make your brain produce English under real conditions.
I actually started doing that 6 months ago, just recording myself talking about my day. And at first, it was painful to listen back. But slowly, I could hear myself getting better.
That's exactly the habit. And here's the thing, the top 1% of language learners are not smarter. They're not more talented. They just produce more consistently. Okay, habit 2, and this one might actually change how you watch videos, read, listen, all of it.
Good. I like feeling like I'm learning even when I'm relaxing.
Ha, okay, so you're still going to watch videos and read and listen. We're not getting rid of input. We're changing how you do it. Instead of just absorbing, just letting the language wash over you, you start noticing.
Noticing what?
How things are said, not just what is said. So when you watch a video in English and someone says, I ended up just staying home. Instead of just processing the meaning and moving on, you pause. You notice the phrase, ended up. How did they use it? What does it do? Could you use it that way?
I ended up staying home. Oh, I love that expression actually. Ended up. It means that's not what I planned, but that's what happened.
Exactly. And you just did what I'm talking about. You noticed it, you identified the meaning in context, and you connected it to how you would use it. That's noticing. That's active input.
And that's different from just highlighting it in a notebook and then forgetting it exists.
Very different, because you didn't study the phrase ended up. You experienced it in a real sentence, you felt the meaning, and you immediately tried it yourself.
Is this what native speakers do? Like, did you ever study expressions this way as a child?
No, I just absorbed them without thinking about it. But that's what you can consciously replicate as an adult. You can train yourself to notice the way children naturally absorb.
So instead of turning everything into a vocabulary lesson, I just pay attention differently.
Yes, you become a language detective, not a student. Students take notes and move on. Detectives look at something and think, what is interesting here? What can I borrow?
A language detective. I'm gonna put that on a t-shirt.
Please do. And here's a small but important detail. When you notice something, try using it in your own sentence immediately, even in your head, even silently. I ended up eating pasta for dinner. I ended up calling her back. We ended up just talking for 3 hours. That's when it moves from something you noticed to something you own.
We ended up talking for 3 hours. That's actually true of me and my sister last night. I could have said exactly that, and I wouldn't have. I would have said, we talked for 3 hours, which is fine, but it's more flat.
And ended up gives it that whole story, like you didn't plan it, it just happened. You got carried away. More personality, more texture.
More texture. Yes, that's what I want.
Okay, third habit, and I think this is actually the most powerful one. Third habit, and I think this is actually the most powerful one.
More powerful than the output one?
Maybe equally powerful. They work together, but this one is more about identity than action.
Identity?
Think about this. If someone asks you what you're doing right now, in your life, in your day, would you say, I'm learning English?
Yes, naturally.
Or would you say, I'm someone who lives in English?
Those sound different. The first one's like a task on a to-do list. The second one is more like a lifestyle.
Exactly. And here's the difference in real life. If English is a subject, something you study, then it only exists inside your study session, 1 hour a day maybe. You open your book or your app, you do your lesson, and then you close it and go back to your real life.
Yes, that's what school felt like. English was a box I opened and closed.
But if English is part of your life, if it's woven into your day, then it exists for 24 hours. You listen to a podcast in English while you cook. You think through a problem in English before you go to sleep. You narrate your morning to yourself in English. I'm making coffee. I need to buy more milk. Actually, scratch that. I should switch to oat milk.
It's so specific, but I kind of love it. Do you actually do that?
I mean, I'm a native speaker, so it happens automatically. But when I've learned other languages, yes, I narrate. I think in that language. I try to make it live in my head.
I started doing this with English, and it was strange at first. Like, who am I talking to? But then it actually helps because you notice the gaps. Like, I know the word for the thing in my language, but I don't know it in English, and suddenly I have a very specific thing to learn.
Yes, that's called a comprehension gap, and it's a gift, because now you have a real question that came from your real life. That's so much more powerful than a vocabulary list someone else made.
I remember once I was cooking, and I couldn't remember the English word for when you cut something very finely, like really small pieces.
Mince or finely chop?
Mince, yes. And I looked it up right there in the kitchen. And now I will never forget it because I needed it. It was mine.
And that's the identity shift. You go from I am learning English to English is part of how I live. And when that happens, every part of your day becomes a practice opportunity. Okay, last habit, and it's the one I think is most responsible for keeping learners stuck.
The mistake thing, isn't it?
You guessed it.
Because I can already feel myself getting defensive.
Why defensive?
Because I know I'm bad at this. I hate making mistakes. I hate them. When I say something wrong in English and someone corrects me, even gently, I feel so embarrassed, and then I go quiet. I just stop speaking.
And after you go quiet, does your English improve?
No, obviously not.
So the mistake cost you something. Not just the correction, the silence after, the decision to stop.
I never thought of it that way. The silence is the real problem.
The silence is where the improvement dies. Because the learners who grow fastest, the ones who seem to suddenly leap ahead, they don't make fewer mistakes. They make more mistakes faster, and they don't stop.
More mistakes, faster.
Think about a baby learning to walk. It falls hundreds of times. It doesn't feel embarrassed. It doesn't conclude, I'm not good at walking. It just tries again, because it doesn't have a concept of failure yet. It only has trying.
Okay, but we're adults. We're self-conscious. We've learned to be embarrassed.
Exactly. And that's learned, which means it can be unlearned. or at least managed.
How do you manage it?
One thing that really works is changing the story you tell about mistakes. Instead of, I got that wrong, that's embarrassing, you try, I got that wrong, now I know. That's it. That small shift changes everything, because now the mistake is data, not evidence of failure.
I got that wrong, now I know.
And if you can go further, I got that wrong in front of someone, which means I'll remember the correction even better because it was uncomfortable. Discomfort is actually a learning accelerant.
A learning accelerant. I'm gonna need a moment to sit with that, because my whole instinct is to avoid the discomfort, and you're saying the discomfort is the point.
The discomfort is where the growth lives. Comfortable practice produces slow progress. Uncomfortable practice, where you're stretched, where you might fail, where it matters, that's where you accelerate.
Okay, I believe you. I don't like it, but I believe you.
That's enough to start with. So, let me bring this all together. We've talked about 4 habits today, 4 things that genuinely separate the learners who make it, who reach fluency, who feel confident, who stop dreading English and start enjoying it, from the learners who stay stuck for years.
Produce more than you consume, notice how things are said, not just what, make English part of your life, and change your relationship with mistakes.
You remembered all 4. I'm impressed.
I'm a good student when I'm not hiding in my organized but useless vocabulary notebooks.
And here's the thing I really want you to take away today. None of these habits are big. None of them require more hours in your day. 1 minute of speaking out loud, 1 phrase noticed and borrowed, 1 moment of narrating your life, 1 mistake you don't go quiet after. That's it.
Small shifts every day.
Small shifts every day. And compounded over months, that's what gets you ahead of 99% of learners. Not because you're smarter, not because you study harder, but because most learners never make these shifts. They stay in the same patterns. They keep opening and closing the box.
And you just live differently.
Exactly. You live in the language. Okay, before we go, I want to give you a challenge for this week, and it's really simple. Pick one of the 4 habits we talked about today, just one, and do it every day for 7 days. Not perfectly, not for hours, just once a day, even for a minute.
Which one would you recommend starting with?
For most people, the speaking one. Record yourself for 60 seconds. Talk about your day, your morning, anything. Just produce. You will be uncomfortable. That means it's working.
I'll do it again. I'll do it tomorrow morning. Actually, I'll do it right after we finish recording this.
Good. And share it in the comments. Not the recording, you don't have to do that. Just tell us which habit are you going to try this week. That little act of saying it out loud makes it much more likely to actually happen.
It's like a little commitment.
Exactly. And if this episode gave you something, if there was one moment where you thought, oh, that's me, that's my problem, I understand now, share it. Send it to someone who needs to hear it. That's how this channel grows, and it's how other learners find their way here.
And subscribe. Seriously, we make these episodes with a lot of care. We want you to come back.
Thank you for being here. Next week, we are going to talk about something a lot of learners are afraid to ask about: the difference between knowing English and thinking in English. It's a big one.
Oh, I have a lot of feelings about that topic.
Good. Save them for next week.
I'll write them down. In English, in my notebook. My very colorful, well-organized notebook.
There's hope for you yet.
There's hope for all of us.
The learners who get ahead are not the ones who know the most. They're the ones who stop waiting to be ready.